Real World News TV with Reggie Kearney and Chair Ann Tappan, bringing you news and politics. Real World News TV every Tuesday night at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 p.m. Central, and 8:30 on the East Coast. Real World News TV, the most interactive, longest-running radio and television show under the Hot Topics Talk Radio Network. Real World News TV, where your comments and your views are welcome. Real World News TV, news for us, by us, that affects us all. Real World News TV.
Good evening to our listeners, and welcome back to the fall edition of Real World News TV. I'm Reggie Kearney, one of the co-hosts. Got my sidekick, Sharon Tappet McCabe, with us tonight, and got my man from Chicago, Shacktown, Ray G, with Truth Brothers Radio. What's up, Ray? How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you guys doing?
Just fine. And Sharon, how you doing?
It's a bit of a hellish day, but we're here now, and that's what counts.
Right. Well, tonight we've got a topic that's been brewing over the time since the last time we were here, and the title show tonight is Police Brutality and Defunding the Police. And we realize and we know we still got a lot of issues with police brutality, and we're going to go more into that during the show. And there's been a lot of talk about defunding the police, and we really got to be careful on how we use that word, defunding the police, because some people are taking the word literally to mean, and look, we're going to get rid of the police force. But there are ways to, Ray shaking his head like, okay, yeah.
It's the dumbest term in the world. So
yeah, but there's ways of getting things corrected in the police department without dismantling the police department. And believe me, we don't want to dismantle the police department. I know here in my area, in the D.C. area, if we were to dismantle the police department, I had to move to another planet or something like that. So we definitely don't want to do that. Just quickly to catch us up on the news that's been going on, we all realize we're in the midst of a presidential race at this time, and I'm encouraging all our listeners that if you haven't registered to vote, please, you got to, in some places, October the 3rd, between October the 3rd and October the 13th, voter registration is going to end. So please tell your relatives, your cousins, whoever, your friends, please get out and register to vote, because this is going to be definitely going to be a very important election coming up. And then we've had other issues with protesters and things of the like in the last month or so, and it's been really hectic out there. But it's been a mixture of on point with the message, and sometimes the message has gotten hijacked. I know we're still dealing with George Floyd fallout. We're still dealing with the Breonna Taylor fallout. So it's a lot going on in this country right now, and we're here to let everybody know we got some work to do. Especially in the arena of voting. So please tell your cousins and your friends, all the boys on the corner hanging out at 7-Eleven, just make sure they're registered to vote. We need every vote. Every vote counts. So before we get started, I want to recognize the news of the situation that happened out in LA over the weekend, last couple of days, where two officers were shot while sitting in their cruiser. This show tonight, we're not trying to beat up on the police department. We're trying to make some sense of what's going on. We realize too, at the same time, we all have friends that are police officers. I know I have friends, relatives, and things that are police officers, but we do realize that we have some good cops and we have some bad cops, and we really have to work on that. We got some cops that are not racist. We got some cops that are racist. So it's a lot of work that's got to be done. So let's start out tonight talking about police brutality, because, man, what happened down in Clayton County, Georgia over the weekend? Did y'all see that?
With the
actions?
What, with the Lyft driver who was pulled over for a broken taillight?
Yeah. I mean, that was crazy. that was really crazy. I mean, and like I was telling someone, the Klan isn't out there wearing white robes and white hoods now. The Klan can be somebody that's in a police uniform. It's just the whole gamut right now. But that officer beat up on that black man like he had hatred in his heart.
It wasn't just one.
That's right.
But I'm talking about the one that got fired. If you look at the one, both of them were out there doing the dirt. But the one who got fired, if you look at the way he was pulling back his fist and beating on that man, it was like he was beating a black man with a heart.
They were trying to kill him. They're trying to kill him.
But you got to keep in mind and understand that white supremacist groups, the Klan, but white supremacist groups have infiltrated the police for decades now. And now it's they've infiltrated the police, and especially the police union now. And the police union holds so much influence over public policy that it is a force. We need a forced dismantling and a forced reallocating of the police force. We need to reallocate the means of the police and what they do. And a lot of that means changing their function, period. A lot of their functions, because all of this stuff is so ingrained that now you have a police union that instantly backs up whatever they do. And not only do they back it up, they make a call to their right-wing Republican friends who double down, and that's why you can't get any legislation moved or anything or anything going on. I mean, the stories get more and more horrific, and the more horrific they get, the more desensitized the public get, and it's just a cycle of just bogging down everything.
Yes, it is. One of the things that really irritated me a while back, and this came out of New York City with Sherry Ann's police department when they went across the bridge because they can't have but so many people in a gathering. Went across the bridge over in New Jersey to that guy who's in the White House golf course to give them the support. And the problem you have with the police union is, they supposed to be police officers for all the, they're supposed to be the union for all police officers, but they don't represent the African American police officer. They don't, because their actions go contrary to what the black officers want. I even noticed in the area where I live, the FOP, represents the interests of the white officers, but they don't represent the interests of the black officers that much.
Absolutely not.
You got a lot of black officers that don't represent the interests of the black officers.
Yeah, this is absolutely true, and which it boggles my mind, because they have to know that if they're not in uniform, they are just as vulnerable as the rest of us. And
they believe that they can put that sticker on their plate. They can put that for Fraternal Order Police on their plate, and some of that other badging that they put on their civilian cars, and a lot of them pass through.
But
you've always had a lot of people who believe that I'm a lawyer who happens to be black. I'm a police officer who happens to be black. I'm a senator who happens to be black. Like, you wasn't black first. You're black before you're anything.
Yeah, until they're not, until they get stopped. And then you hear about it on the news. We've heard about judges, attorneys, police officers, corrections officers off duty, getting stopped, getting harassed, getting beat, getting put in jail for days. They're not exempt. And why they think they're exempt, and why, what's her face? I can only think of Stacey Dash, but what's the other mouthpiece nowadays?
Oh, Candace Owens.
Yeah, Candace.
Why they think they're the exception, because they have learned to regurgitate these talking points. It just boggles the mind. And
Candace Owens is in it for the money. She's getting paid to be a mouthpiece.
Yeah.
The other ones you're hearing, behind closed doors, when you get the handshakes and the pat on the back, and because you're parroting what they want you to parrot, then you see what's that black senator from Oklahoma, that coon. He, as much as he gets disrespected out in public, he'll continue to smile and shuffle and dance.
You're talking about South Carolina.
Is it South Carolina? I thought it was from Oklahoma.
Yeah, no, Tim Scott.
The black dude who wrote the police reform bill that did nothing.
Yeah, from South Carolina, wrote a bill that's still sitting, ain't moved nowhere. You know, they pulled him out the hat and said, okay, look, this is a black folks thing. Why don't you go write this bill and everything? You know, we're gonna give you your props. You know, the bill never went nowhere because didn't have no substance in it.
Right.
You know, it seems as though one would think, in light of everything that's going on, that there would be, you know, the psychology behind self-preservation is a little twisted right now. Instead of pulling back and doing less of the nonsense that they've been doing, that they've been getting caught on film doing for the last, ever since Rodney King, we've seen more and more and more and more and more video. But now, with protests lasting as many months as they have been, putting aside the fact that they've been infiltrated for a moment, just looking at the legitimate righteousness of the protests in some of those municipalities that have worked to make some change for what it's worth. On the one hand, I have this hair trigger response to say you would think that there would be this ounce of self-preservation that would say, you know what, let me put my shit back under wraps for a second until things cool down and then start acting up again, as they have done historically speaking. But now, daily, we're seeing more egregious acts of violence from the police. And I was thinking to myself, when you had announced the topic of this show, yeah, we're going to talk about defunding and what that actually means and reallocating funds and how it's worked in places like Camden, New Jersey. But I think one of the core things that, aside from the racism, aside from the infiltration of the KKK into the ranks, there's this core psychology that the police departments seem to have right now, that their will is omnipotent. And you can't question their will, regardless of what the laws in their own state say. So if the laws in their state say you don't have a right to ask for identification unless this individual is actually breaking the law, these police officers are breaking that law on a daily basis. And then the minute you contest their will, they drag you out of a car and beat the ever-loving shit out of you. And why they aren't in the whole notion of qualified immunity needs to go. And this notion that you can't insult them, you can't contest their will. They're police officers. They're not God. Like, who the hell are these people? Who the hell do they think they are? And I don't know what psychology tests they're going through, but they're not working.
Mm-hmm. But they are the enforcers of the status quo. They are the enforcers of the money, so to speak. The whole serve and protect thing, it was never meant to serve and protect people. It was meant to serve and protect business and property owners. It was never meant to serve and protect people.
So then what property were they protecting when they dragged those passengers out of the lift car?
But look,
they were protecting the street. They were what?
They're reinforcing the status quo. All of the protests and all of the bad publicity has done nothing but force them to double down. That's how insidious the police union is. That now that they've doubled down and they behind closed doors, they've been giving the tacit okay that, hey, we're gonna back you. No law will move against you. That's what qualified immunity was for, to make sure that we cannot remove you. And if you are removed, you can just go sign on somewhere else. It's a system. It's an insidious system. And this thing has been going on for a long time, and it's well entrenched. And it's going to be a very heavy lift to root this stuff out. And the only way you're going to root it out is you got to be willing to embrace massive change. And this country ain't ready to do that. Your Democratic candidate is promising you to go back 4 years. We're going to make everything feel like 4 years ago. All of this stuff was entrenched 4 years ago. All of this stuff upticked under Obama. Not saying that it was Obama's fault, but this was a reaction to having a black president.
100%.
And all of that, and all they did was uptick it, and every institution dug itself in, and they're surrounded and protected. After the George Floyd murder, they were on the ropes. And don't you think that they got calls behind closed doors saying, stand your ground, don't worry about it. That's why they started their little blue line flag thing. That's a gang symbol. That's a gang symbol. And now they having tacit, they got gang symbols, they got masks, they give themselves They give themselves secret handshakes and hand signs. They're a gang.
Well, they started off being a gang in the first place. When the police department started, when the fire department started, they were right, aside from the overseers evolving into police officers, they were gangs to begin with. So that's nothing different. But you would think you would think that with a population that's supposed to be better education, I'm not saying we are, but you would think that with the access to education, the access to media, the video, we have a more informed population, but we're still tolerating this shit. I don't understand.
No, we for one quick week, we had all the movements derailed and everybody stopped thinking for a minute to talk about WAP. They dropped that video and it sucked up all of the air in media.
I actually had to think to myself, what? It took me a second. That's how
I don't want to get it.
You know?
Yeah. And that literally sucked all the air out of the room instantly. Now, if you want to go with pop culture, what's the name? Drop Black is King, and they dropped WAP the next week and totally sucked all the air out of that. We love negativity. We are attracted to negativity more than we're attracted to positivity. And we have been thoroughly trained to just look over there. We're meerkats.
Yeah.
We're meerkats. And it takes nothing to distract you. And an institution can outlast your emotion. And that's what we're running off of. Something else happens, we get upset all over again, but then they'll just wait a little while and distract you with something else. An institution can outlast an emotion.
Yeah, it's so strange.
I feel like the steam has been let out of the balloon. The air has been let out of the balloon. If you look over the last couple of weeks, where are the protesters at? Where's the Black Lives Matter movement at now? Where, no one is bringing up the issues anymore. It's like a standstill. Yes, we're focused on the upcoming trials of the officers that killed George Floyd and shot the brother out in Wisconsin. We're focused on that, but that's all we're doing. We can't even get the officers arrested in Kentucky. We can't, a little bit, they can't even get arrested, so
but look at where it is.
Where are the hard protesters at? That hard protest. It's like we grab a hold of the moment and then we let the air out the balloon and it just rise on into the sunset by itself.
You have movements now without grounded leadership. I mean, Black Lives Matter. Every time you see a protest today, it's allegedly Black Lives Matter. You're not going to tell me what they were doing in Portland was Black Lives Matter. It was not. That was all white. But every news outlet told you it was Black Lives Matter. Anything that happens, if a riot breaks out, what happened in Chicago when everybody just decided to run downtown and loot, that wasn't an official protest. That was just a spur of the moment thing that everybody did, and yet it was under Black Lives Matter. So it's a lazy game. You don't have press anymore. It's all just lazy. Anything that happened is Black Lives Matter. Anything that happened is the police. When you've seen some of those movements and you saw agents in the crowd literally knocking out windows and breaking stuff and trying to elicit bad behavior, there was no press outlet outside of the underground ones like we're doing. There was no mainstream press outlet saying, this is so-and-so and so-and-so. He happens to be with the police department. Why was he here? Where was the investigative reporter that went to his house and say, hey, we've got a picture of you here knocking out windows. What's going on? You didn't see any of that. Everybody just went along with what was going on.
Yeah.
Everybody went along with what was going on. You're dealing with a grounded institution. You're dealing with institutions to back them up. And like I say, all we're doing is just free flowing off of emotion. And we don't have a stick anymore. We don't have an SCLC. Not that, we don't have anything anymore. They tell you got Black Lives Matter. Now you've got a ton of different other organizations, but they're so small and so isolated and so disjointed from everybody. I've got a friend right now. I respect her immensely. She's a black nationalist. She works with organizations to feed people, to try to get help open up black businesses. And when I suggested that, hey, are y'all working with Black Lives Matter? She told me how Black Lives Matter is more of a gay organization than a black organization, which she does have a point in some regards, but no one wants to work with one another because there's these built-in barriers with agenda. And it was the same thing they did with Marlana Karinga back in the day, and the Panthers. That's two black nationalist ideas that couldn't get together because one was more Afrocentric and one was more street level, but no one can work with one another.
Yeah. Well,
it's the same thing.
One thing I noticed, the turnaround came with Michael Brown and Ferguson, and with Trayvon Martin's death. And I'll give you a little example why I say that. When they had the march in Washington for Michael Brown and Trayvon, and we got down near the front near the stage area, okay, where they were supposed to make the speeches after the march, okay? You know, Reverend Al, he had everything under control, doing the speeches and doing everything, everything was, programmed to go ... Well, somehow somebody got pissed off with the Black Lives Matter movement. They wanted some time or more time to say what they had to say. They, in a sense, jacked up the stage because they wanted to be heard more.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And basically, what they were saying is, look, old folks, y'all need to go sit down. Okay. This is a young folks thing now. Okay. So guys my age, they're telling us, y'all, we don't need y'all no more. We got this. And that's the problem.
Are young. They were, especially back then, they were grassroots and they were young, angry, and yes, and this is what happens when Sharpton, Jackson, I'm even throw Minister Farrakhan in there. When you have all of these old leaders that don't cultivate and bring up young warriors behind them to say, okay, guys, you guys are now out in front. We will back you from behind the scenes. Look, the George Floyd thing, when Sharpton got out there, and I don't have a real beef with Sharpton, but when he organized this march and the march that they had last month, I'm going to be honest, I was a little disgusted. First off, show you how manipulating the press is. It's easy to beat up on the people in Sturgis for having that big event and spreading COVID around. But if that march in Washington wasn't a super spreader event in a pandemic, but it was a chance to organize cash and build up networks and build up money for the National Action Network. And that I have a problem with. It's not about the actual people on the ground anymore. The problem with Black Lives Matter is they won't organize on a national level to actually have national leaders. They believe like the Occupy movement believed, we don't have leaders. You can't have a movement without leaders. You can't.
No.
You've got to have a spokesperson. You've got to have somebody who can speak for you, because when that event happened in Chicago and they looted downtown, and I know some of my people from Chi-Town is out there listening, they can validate this. When they attacked downtown and looted and robbed the place, one of the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement in Chicago, this young sister, got out there, and instead of saying, hey, we didn't organize this and this shouldn't have happened this way, and we've got to do better, and this takes away from the cause, she got out there and said, they're out there looting and doing all of that. Yeah, this is our reparations. That's not the statement to make. That's not the statement to make. So when you do have national people or celebrities trying to get out front, like what LeBron did by trying to stop the NBA, then you have people like President Obama who went out there and told him, don't do that. That's a problem. That's a problem. That's controlling. That's big people controlling the message and the movement, and that's a problem.
And when it comes to defunding the police, they're all over the place with that. Okay, here in Washington,
because the messaging is screwed up.
Yeah, here in the Washington area, one of the young ladies here in the Washington area has stated that she won't be satisfied in Washington, and she's with Black Lives Movement in Washington. She won't be satisfied until the police department in Washington D.C. is dismantled. Okay, that's what she wants.
That's not a good, right.
She wants straight across the board.
The first thing Trump did was he ran ads showing an empty police department with a answer machine saying we can't answer your calls for help because we've been defunded. That's not what defunding the police was supposed to mean, but it has a negative connotation from the start. We don't study our enemies. We don't study our enemies. The Republican Party, they know how to message. The group that is doing the most damage to Trump's campaign is not Democrats. It has been the Lincoln Foundation.
Yeah.
They've been, and that's a Republican group, and they're running the program. They usually run on Democrats on him, and the ads are scathing, devastating, hurtful, because they know how to message. If they were going to defund your school, they're going to call it the Better School Act, and in reality, they defund your school. But they're not going to tell you we're going to defund your school because you will organize. But if I tell you it's No Child Left Behind and it actually leaves everybody behind, you fall for it. So why didn't we call it reallocating the police or repurposing the police? Why did we give it something that people could say after seeing George Floyd's murder, say, something needs to change. Maybe we should reallocate or reorganize the police.
Because they didn't want
better.
to
No, we don't defund the police.
They didn't
and
want
that
to
scares old people.
Yeah, that's why. These people know what they're doing. You know, we have marketing and branding in every party. They know what they're doing. They did not want this to succeed. As you said in the beginning of the show, there is a vested interest in maintaining the system. We've got municipalities throughout the country that have demonstrated by the numbers and by statistics that you can succeed in defunding or reallocating. You know, as I mentioned earlier, Camden, they've dropped their crime rate from 79% to 44% or something like that. Yeah. They defunded, they fired the entire police department, they rehired 100, they got them more involved in the community. These police officers are of the community, for the community, by the community knows them, supports them. They marched with them after the George Floyd murder, but they don't want to show that, and they don't want that to work nationwide.
They want the conflict. That's ratings.
I worry the way things are going. I just wonder how long it's going to take before somebody suggests we enact the purge, because the shit that's going on right now is ridiculous. Yeah,
it's coming. Again, when you had Trump supporters jump into pickup trucks in Portland and drive through the crowd shooting paint guns at people, and then one of them get actually shot, and nobody says, well, why the hell are they antagonizing the crowd? They said that was them exercising their First Amendment
rights. They weren't even from that state.
Yeah. Nothing means anything anymore. Anything can mean anything.
Yeah, no, the purge right now falls under qualified immunity and stand your ground. That's the start of the purge in this country, and it's just going to expand.
Yes.
Well, I don't think so. I think one of the things that we have to do is in the African American community, we got to do as they do, okay? And we're not doing that, okay? We have to prepare ourselves, and we have to step out there and be prepared to fight for our rights, you know, by any means necessary. And we have to be prepared because they are getting prepared to do dirty work regardless of who becomes president, okay?
So you ready for a militia?
Hey, we got one. Got one. The thing is, we don't have the power like they do as far as going out, and they're just doing it, okay? You know, we got one strong militia down in the Atlanta, Georgia area.
Yes.
But in Virginia, where Virginia is an open carry state, if you look at all the open carry states,
open carry is not militia, though. Open carry is not militia. Militia means organizer. Militia means practice. Militia means discipline. But you're right. We do have one in Georgia. Now, here's what they did. They decided to get together, and they decided to march up to Stone Mountain, Georgia, the heart of the Klan. And they marched up there, and they surprised them and they showed this show of force. But what did it actually do? All it did was show that you have a frail ego because you're ready to just show your strength. You didn't need to show your hand. You needed to be rallying around our area. We know that they're up in Stone Mountain. We don't care about that. Why are you going up there? So the next time you want to do something, I can set you up the next time, and you'll fall right for it. You're going to march up there, and we're going to make sure something happens, and we're going to make sure you look like the aggressor, and then we're going to be able to say, okay, yeah, we need to start checking some of these militias, and it will be your militias.
Yeah, but see, Ray, it gets back to organization again, okay? We know we have a strong one in Atlanta, that needs to be really organized. They need to take themselves out of Georgia and organize in other states where you have the open carry law. Because like here in Maryland, we can do a militia here in Maryland, but we're not an open carry state, okay? So we got to keep our stuff at home or keep it in the back seat of the trunk of our car until we need it. But
when you make yourself visible to the world, when you do acts like that, it looks great on YouTube, but all you do is hurt yourself because you need to. You're the oppressed. You're the attack. You have to move in silence. Look, the Nation of Islam was started in 1940. Malcolm X didn't come onto the scene till 1956? But before he was made national spokesperson, the nation had schools, grocery stores. They were one of the largest suppliers and buyers of fish in the country at the time. And they had he had a wide footprint, an economical footprint. Elijah Muhammad actually got mad at Malcolm X when he allowed Mike Wallace to make that show, The Hate That Hate Made, because that was the time when he exposed the Nation of Islam to America. At the time, they were moving underground. Nobody was sweating them. The minute he did that, they became public enemy number one. Now, it benefited Martin Luther King because at the time, Martin Luther King was the scariest Negro they had ever seen till they saw that. Then all the money started flooding to them. But Elijah was mad at that because you exposed what we were doing to the world, and that ain't good for us.
But we've got to come together as a people, okay? Organize ourselves and demand changes in our police department, okay? We have to demand that because if we don't, it's going to continue on, okay? The guy in the White House now is running around on a platform of law and order. Where the problems at? Where are the problems at? He's talking about, well, if I had said something about the pandemic, I would have put fear in people's heart. But then when you're on TV yelling and screaming about your neighborhood's about ready to get attacked, what is that doing?
Please, about the Muslims, about the immigrants, he's the king of creating, of instilling fear in Middle America. So that whole comment,
middle white America, okay, not middle America, middle white America, because a lot of blacks live out in the suburbs now, okay. All right, a lot of blacks live, so he got the whole scenario jacked up, okay.
But that's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
He's about the more I disorganize, the more I create chaos, the more it helps me.
Yeah.
We're in a pandemic. If I can mute your vote, if I can stop you from voting, if I can make it hard for you to vote, that's going to help me. He knows that if everything was equal and everybody voted, he'd lose outright. He only won through the electoral college this time. He lost by 3 million votes in actuality, but this time he knew in the midterms they got wiped out. He knew what was going to happen, so he's using the pandemic to his advantage. And the more I can make things disorganized, the more distrust I can create, the more chaos I can create. It helps me. It helps me, and it exposes how stupid your country is. Your country is stupid. You got a man that is sitting there talking about having more than 2 terms, and everybody's cheering. Everybody's cheering for a king in a so-called democracy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you got people in a democracy that's talking about, I don't want to vote. Yeah. And then at the same time, you got people in a Democratic primary that put his that where somebody come and put their thumb on the scale, and I'm looking at Barack Obama, and influence candidates to get out so that he could shift the dynamic of the election, where it's not a matter of ideas anymore. It's a matter of status quo versus massive change. Now, I know some of y'all like Biden, and I know some of y'all love Obama, and I love Obama. Obama's all right, but Obama is a centrist Democrat. And you're talking about this change, and you're talking about changing the police. Nancy Pelosi is not going to go with defunding the police. She's not going to do it. I'm talking about, let's just say Trump is defeated. Trump is escorted out. Biden is in. Harris is in, and now the Democrats are going to run their program. AOC is going to become an enemy. Bernie Sanders is going to become an enemy again. Anybody who is for defunding police, for progressive change, they are going to label them as the enemy. Nancy Pelosi is not going to be down with defunding the police. Biden ain't going to be down with defunding the police. And I'm not even mad at him right now while he's running, because if I was running, I would not say I'm down for defunding the police. It's too much of a negative connotation when I'm trying to win votes. It's the whole term is too negative. You could run ads against me forever if I say, yeah, no, I think defunding the police is a good idea. I'm going to instantly lose. So he's smart for saying that. It's a horrible term.
But the thing about it, the Republicans are so successful because they get on point with one little word, and they stick to that word the rest of their life. They'll go to the grave on law. Just use that one word, law. All they're going to do is talk about law.
They can break it all they want, but
so that's the difference between them. They stay on point. They don't care. Have you heard them talk about what they're going to do as far as the economy is concerned or anything? Have you heard them talk about that? No, they don't even have a platform for this shit.
They got their usual words: lower taxes, deregulation. They got their buzzwords that they know.
So I haven't heard them. All I've heard is law and order. But for the Democrats are all over the place. We never get centralized on one theme and ride the hell out of it. Okay, we just don't do that.
Well, you know why? Because actual change is scary, and progressive people and people on the left are for change to some degree or another. And again, Medicare for all, that's a positive condensation. Nobody was with it because they threw socialism on there, and it scares center of the road people. Now, here's the crazy part. You had a presidential candidate that was talking about Medicare for all and talking about we need to reallocate these funds and make this work so everybody can have health care. Everybody shot him down, called him a socialist, called him scary. One MSNBC person said that he would line up all the journalists in New York City and shoot them. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then comes a pandemic. A pandemic come along with a number one side effect is it takes your job where you depend on your health care. And none of these candidates, not one of these candidates have said, you know what, maybe Medicare for all is a good idea.
Yeah, they won't touch it.
They won't touch it because a centrist Democrat is a coward. They run for the middle of the road. They're triangulating. You had a presidential candidate who went on a black network, and instead of talking the issues, because she was capable of talking about the issues, she was intelligent. She got on the number one black show and pulled hot sauce out her purse and turned off all of young black America, as well they should be.
The unfortunate thing is they're trying and failing to use the same dumbed down tactic that Trump used for his people. Yes. It works for his people because guess what? They are dumb as a bag of rocks.
That's right.
That's right. Hitting the issues head on is going to work against them right now because of the way Trump runs his election. He runs on fear and lies and gaslighting. And that's a near impossible thing to fight against when you have a population that is so willing to suckle at his pale, freckled teat. I don't get it. So it really handicaps. Yeah, I said it. I'm sorry. Bad imagery.
No, you're fine. You're fine. But you get to say that. It's good imagery.
No, I don't want to. I'm going to have nightmares later. But
no, but
it's like they're handicapped.
But Biden gets out there and the first thing he says is, "How could you think about voting for Trump if you're not voting for me, then you ain't black." What dumb idiot says something that's stupid?
It was stupid, and I will give him a little.
And it's arrogant.
I will give him a little bit of rope, only in as much as I have seen people try to be witty, and it blow up in their face. And I
pull the hot sauce out your purse.
Yeah. So in my mind, that was the put your foot in your mouth because you thought you were going to have a smart, wise crack or witty crack, and it worked against you. But it doesn't work with the population on the left because we're looking for substance. But it's hard to use substance when you're fighting against smoke.
Well, you're also fighting against a social media that attacks, and the left is so fractured that you've got young people who see a conspiracy in every corner because they've been getting their information from social media and they can't really eat the fish and spit out the bones. So everything in the world is the Illuminati. And I read about the Illuminati way, way, way back in the day. And when you read about it, the Illuminati is scary, but the Illuminati don't care about the NBA finals. The Illuminati don't care who wins American Idol. The Illuminati funds countries to go to war against each other. They don't care about this other stuff. But we get so twisted that now you've got young people on the left spouting Republican talking points. Like now they're talking about Pizzagate.
Well, because they don't pick up because
and they believe it's
the right, but they are becoming almost as lazy. And so you have this new breed of people on the left. This, I don't know if it's the millennials or the next batch, but they're not incentivized to read a book, or at least a good book. They want the conspiracy. They want the X-Files. They don't want the facts. And it's almost like we've been trained for years now to look at that thing that gives us that sense of gratification. And for some reason, conspiracy gives us a sense of gratification. Like
it makes you feel like you're in the know. And conspiracies are real. COINTELPRO was real.
Yeah.
COINTELPRO to get rid of active black leaders, that's real. So when you mix some of that in with some of the other stuff, it can be very appealing. And you live in a society now where you don't have to read a book. You can watch a YouTube clip. You can pick up something off of Facebook, and it's going to validate your feelings, and that makes you feel good, and that makes you feel like you're right. And then you can get a clip from another black leader, an Afrocentric black leader, who's going to say some stuff that's true, and then going to say some stuff that's just off the point.
Not just off the point, off the reservation.
Yeah, but you don't know enough. And then you'll have an established black journalist or leader that will pull them on a show and they'll attack them 3-on-1 and make them look silly. But all that does is reinforce his
You're part of the establishment.
You're attacking him.
Yeah.
You're not trading facts. You're not trading information. You're attacking. You're saying just because he's on here and he's this, everything he says is invalid, which is not what you do. Yeah. You're supposed to some of the stuff that's valid. You work on that.
Yeah, and it's so funny because the right claims the left are just a bunch of snowflakes. Meanwhile, the right really are melt in your mouth, not in your hand snowflakes, if ever there were any. And literally everything they blame the left of, they're projecting.
That's all they do, right?
And
that's a white supremacist thing, but they've done that their entire history. Their whole history is nothing but projection. Everything they said about us was actually them. They said we were savages.
I know.
Y'all were savages. Y'all were up in the Caucasus Mountains. Y'all were the one eating uncooked flesh. Y'all was the one going out bashing stuff in the head, dragging it back to a cave. We never lived in a cave. We've never done any of that stuff. Everything you said you created civilization. No, we created civilization. We created the first civilizations on earth. We had the first text. We had the first written word. We gave you the concept of religion, whether it was many gods or one god.
Religion, science, medicine, all of it. But like the last 3 years, I feel as though I've been living in this constant state of vertigo, with a headache and nausea, because my brain hurts daily from listening to the cognitive dissonance, the lies, the spin. It's dizzying to watch what's happening and to see that the numbers of people who are calling it out are dwindling. And I speak to some young folks, some young sisters and brothers at work or that I know outside, and every once in a while they'll say something and I'm just like how do I, that there's so much concrete right now to like chip away to get back to that pure core where you can impart some general, some real information and knowledge, like that outside coating of plaque, that intellectual plaque is just too great to get through, and it's depressing.
You have to ground your arguments. You have to ground your stance in principle, not off emotion, not off what's hot in the street, in principle. Principle states that I don't want my children twerking. I want better for my children. Now, my daughter grows up to be a stripper, I have to deal with that. But I shouldn't want her to be a stripper. That's principle. Just like
you can make mad dollars that way, yo.
Right. But yes, you can. And hey, and more power to them. It's not, I don't think strippers are the worst people in the world. I just don't want, I'd rather my daughter be a doctor than a stripper. That's a principle. I want the best for my people, but I've got to hold my people up to a higher standard and demand that we demand better of ourselves so we can demand better from these institutions that are attacking us. The reason that we're getting attacked is because we don't love ourselves the way other people love themselves. I always say some of this stuff, the stuff that happened that happened to the Lyft driver, the Uber driver,
his passengers, not even the driver, his passengers.
If I was Jewish, that would never happen. Not because the police aren't bloodthirsty, they are. They just shot a Down syndrome white kid not too long ago. They are, but they know that there will be repercussions from the Jewish community if we push it too far with them. Yeah. White supremacists ain't got love for Jewish people, but they know where their easy targets are. They know who they can attack and they know who they can't. They might call themselves having a plan to work their way up to them, but they're not going to come out, not outright against them, because they know they're going to meet a massive wall of resistance because that community is unified. We have to treat ourselves better to demand that they treat us better. But when you say that, then people want to argue with you about, well, you know what? You just want to be picking on us. No, I expect better from us. I expect better from you. I expect better. We are supposed to be better than what we're doing. So I have no problem with WAP. It's fine when my kids are asleep or my kids ain't home and me and my girl and me and my wife is in the room. That's perfect. But that should not be played as the kids are getting ready to go to school. Yeah. That should not be played for the kids. You got that, and then Netflix just put out a documentary or some show called Cuties. And it's the most disgusting thing out there, but that's cause and effect. But when you call it out, people don't want to draw the line because it's uncomfortable because you like that stuff.
So back to the topic at hand. Until we get to the point where we can get more momentum towards reallocating funds that go to the police department, investigating corrupt police departments like they did in Camden. What can we do to protect our people? Because it's clear and painfully obvious that we can be doing nothing and still get the crap beaten out of us or shot.
Discipline and control. Yesterday, I saw a video of this was in Elk Grove, California. There was a young man, a young brother that was being pulled over by a cop saying that he ran a stop sign. Big whoop, no big deal, right? He got in front of his house. The officer keeps asking him, do you have warrants or are you on parole? He says no. She continues to berate him with this. His parents come out, stood on their property line next to him, and told the officer, we've giving you his driver's license, we've given you his registration. Why won't you just go write the ticket? Now the officer is in a bad spot because they're embarrassed. So all they did was stand there with their hand on their weapon, trying to intimidate them. But they didn't lose their cool. They stood their ground. This happened for 20 minutes. And they just kept saying, we gave you his information. Go write the ticket. No one's arguing about the ticket. We'll take that to court. That's no big deal. Just go do your job. We're not threatening you. We're not intimidating you. Go do your job.
And I get that. And he was lucky.
Like that.
He was lucky. He was near his home and he was near his family. But I've also seen another video where a guy is getting arrested. He's standing there with his hands behind his like this, and two cops run up on him. One guy signals to the other, and they straight up kick him in the back. He turned around like what, which is a natural bodily reaction, and they use that as an opportunity to escalate it and beat the shit out of him. Like.
Yes. Now, as you're saying that,
it's happening now.
Let's keep in mind that even as we're speaking right now, there are a number of black people being pulled over by the cops right now.
Yeah.
As we're talking. Keep your wits about you. Learn how to de-escalate. 9 times out of 10, you're going to come out of that interaction unscathed. Now, when you come across that cop who just wants to make something happen, you got to be aware, and you're going to have to protect yourself and hope you get through that. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to get pulled over by a cop and nothing is going to happen. How many of us have been pulled over by a cop and nothing happened? You get the ticket, you move on. Most, like you open the show saying most cops are interested in doing their jobs. I know a couple of cops too that they're only interested in doing their jobs. I've come across some cops that, hey, they told me, hey, yeah, man, I forgot my plate sticker one time. I forgot to put it on, and the cop pulled me over. He gave me a ticket, but he also told me, hey, man, put the sticker on, go to court, show them that you put the sticker on. They're going to dismiss the thing right away. Most cops are just interested in doing their jobs. And then you've got asses out there. Now, the problem is a lot of the cops are interested in doing their job. They uphold the status quo of the asses because those asses got to have their back and have to protect them when things get hot. They don't want to end up like Serpico. That might be before a lot of y'all time, but
yeah, I remember.
Yeah, but he got shot by his own police officers because they didn't have his back. Because he was
that should be unacceptable.
Out.
And that should be unacceptable. It really should be. And that right there should just make it so painfully obvious that the system is corrupt. And like I don't understand, putting aside the racist guys and the power hungry guys, and I've known a few. Not necessarily racist, but power-hungry misogynists who should not be police officers. And when they told me that they were going for the exam, I thought, Jesus Christ, you're the last person that should be a police officer. But what I don't understand are those cops who are quote-unquote good. And I have a couple in my family in different states, and they're quieter states that have fewer issues. They don't understand what's happening here on the East Coast. And so when I would meet and have conversations with them, they would look at me aghast like, surely you're exaggerating. So I had to send them some videos. I'm like, no, this is life on the East Coast and in many other states. You live in a bubble, which is awesome, and I'm happy for you. But what I don't get are those police officers who go in for the right reasons, who take their oath, regardless of the systematic intent of protecting property over life, themselves on a personal level go into it for what we all imagine police officers to be, uphold the law and protect human life, and yet still don't do anything, stand by while somebody's kneeling on your neck. The guy, the lift passengers had two or three guys on his back, 2 or 3 guys, because he wouldn't give his ID, which he wasn't required to do. One of them fired, the others don't, and the others stand by. Now, if any of the others were good cops, they're not anymore. They're complicit.
Because when these guys, let's just say when they go into the police academy, that they're trained in doing all the right things. The minute they get out of the police academy, they're instantly deprogrammed and trained that this is how this works. Because the secret is the system knows that it's messed up. The system wants to be messed up. You are not, they don't serve and protect you. You are occupy and control because you're the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
You are occupy and contain and control. You're the enemy. They feel that it's us against them and we're the them.
So they forget that they're part of the community. They believe
that they're protecting themselves from the animals and we're the animals.
Yeah.
And that's what they believe. They believe that they tell you, we go out there and we fight the bad guys. They figure we're the bad guys. They don't see us as fellow citizens. They damn sure don't see us as Americans. They see us as the problem.
Yeah.
They see us as the issue.
Including if they're your autistic child.
You obviously took it or you're doing something illegal.
Yeah. Yes, Tony.
It's time.
Talk
Good show, though. Really good show. Oh, my gosh. I'm going to go back and look at this one again. A lot. Last word. 1 minute.
Good show.
Chera, last word. 30 seconds.
No, it's not mine. I'm shell shocked for the last 3 years. There are no words to describe what's going on, and I hope that we can succeed in reallocating funds with the police department. I hope that Black Lives Matter and the protesters get their steam back in time before the election. I hope we don't lose the momentum that we've gained this year. COVID kicked us in the ass for a bit of that, but we have a lot of work to do.
A lot of work. Well, great show, you guys. Sorry I had to kind of like cut you off like I did, but you guys would go on forever. So I had to step in. Anyway, I do want to thank everyone who has tuned in to Real World News TV tonight, and I'm hoping that you enjoyed the show. You can join Real World News TV here every week on Tuesday night. The show always begins at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 Central, and 8:30 on the East Coast. Make sure that you follow them here on Facebook under Real World News TV. Also, make sure that you head on over to our website at hottopicstalkradio.com. You can catch up on some past shows. You can even watch the show live on our website. But you can also find out more about the host of all of the shows here under the Hot Topics Talk Radio Network. So with that being said, I'm going to close us out with some information on tomorrow night's show on Hot Topics Talk Radio with me, Yvonne Baker, and we have a special guest sitting in for Chris Smith tomorrow night, Mr. Lance Reed. You guys might have seen Lance Reed. He's always watching the shows, always commenting, so I thought it would be interesting to have him on with us tomorrow night. We're going to tear him alive.
That's the topic.
But tomorrow night's show on Hot Topics Talk Radio is women making the first move. So if you follow me on Facebook, then if you follow me on Facebook, you would have seen that I did post that question: should women make the first move? So that's what's going to happen. What do you know?
Go for it.
So anyway, so the show starts tomorrow night at 8 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 10 o'clock Central, and 11 o'clock on the East Coast. Make sure that you come on back under Hot Topics Talk Radio and catch Real World News TV with Reggie Kearney and Chair Tappan McCabe every Tuesday night. We will see you guys back here tomorrow night on Hot Topics Talk Radio and again on Real World News next week. You guys have a wonderful rest of your night.
Hey, thanks for sitting in tonight, Ray.
Thank you. Live long and prosper, people.
Hey, same to you, my brother.
Talk too much. Anyway.
But it's very edifying, so I appreciated it. Yeah.
Great show. Thanks a lot, Ray. We really appreciate you. Because actually, let me say this and then we're gone. Ray, Gage, and Devon Patrick, Truth Brothers Radio out of Chicago, will be sitting in for Chris Smith and Richard Hall on Man to Man TV for about a month or so. So I'm hoping that you guys get all, geared up for that. That's going to be fun. But they'll be starting next week on Thursday. They'll be coming on next week on Thursday night for Man to Man TV. So until then, we'll see you guys tomorrow night on Hot Topics Talk Radio. Have a wonderful rest of your night. Talk to you soon.
Peace.
Cameras down.